One thing that do surprise people when they see me shooting is that I do not shoot ProRes with this camera. This might be a surprise to you too, but later in this video, I'm going to explain to you why and it will totally make sense. So I'm going to tell you my whole experience of shooting with the Blackmagic Pocket 6K Pro for over a year now. I have used this camera to shoot corporate video, commercial, documentary style video, music video, car commercial, lens testing, and a short film that is currently in production. I also have a lot of projects lined up. I know most people that own this camera usually complain about the design, but once you've passed through that, you will definitely fall in love with everything that this camera does. I only have one complaint about this camera that usually affects my costume choices, but we are going to talk about that later in this video. As I've always said, the price to image ratio, this camera is a dream to have for any filmmaker, content creator, videographer, or anyone who's really looking for a great and filmic image quality without breaking the bank. What I really love about this camera is that Blackmagic is not trying to offer you a photography camera that does video. This is purely made for filmmakers who want to shoot motion, and what they have prioritized are things that are very helpful and can only be found in high-end and the most expensive cameras. Whether you do like Blackmagic cameras or not, I'm sure we can both agree that as soon as you turn this camera on, you are not going to be lost in a menu, because everything that you need to expose your image as a filmmaker, it is right in front of you. What I'm a super fan of are the exposure tools that this camera allows you to access. With false color, you can expose correctly by seeing the value of your skin tone, highlight and shadow, which is great and always help you to get better results. Using false color is a great practice and I recommend you to start using it. By the way, I only expose using false color, and if you want to see my method, please comment below and I would make an in-depth video explaining to you what false color is and how to use it, just for you guys. Another super helpful tool in this camera are the RGB histogram, which allow you to see the tone of the image that you are capturing so you can balance your shots properly. All these tools combined have been my go-to for better exposure and great skin tone. Another thing about this camera that I find myself using all the time that I did not think I was going to love are the IR and the filters. So here's one thing. When I used to have the Blackmagic Pocket 6K, I had a lot of filters. I had screw-on filter, I did have the 4x5 65. Basically, I used to carry the whole bunch in my camera bag. And one thing that I've noticed about using all those filters is that the best one are usually expensive, and the one that are not expensive, they don't really give you results that you are looking for. Yes, they still work, but with the built-in ND in the Blackmagic Pocket 6K Pro, they are designed so that they can bring the best out of the sensor because they are made by Blackmagic, and they also do a lot to help you with that IR contamination that Blackmagic cameras suffer with. One thing to keep in mind is that yes, you are still going to see some IR contamination, but it's not as much as it used to be or as much as it is on other Blackmagic cameras. So having internal ND is one of these cameras' biggest selling points. I don't know about you, but when you're on set, you really want to minimize the time that you spend setting up the camera, and the presets in this camera, they are very, very helpful, and yes, they do help you to save time, because most of the time when I'm blocking a scene, I also take those information and log them into my preset so that I'm ready to shoot. And let's say I decide to switch to another scene, I can only tweak one or two things instead of going back and forth in the menu all the time. If we jump into my preset, I still have it set up to my previous music video that I did, and as you can see here, I actually shot everything or all the B-roll in 60 frames per second, so which means one tap and I'm ready to shoot slow motion. Also, let's say I'm done with all the slow motion stuff and I'm ready to shoot 6K roll 24 frames per second or any resolution of your choice. All you need to do is to press the menu, then locate the preset and tap on your save the preset, and you are ready to shoot your preferred resolution, which saved me so much time. And I recommend you to start using this preset functionality if you want to shoot fast. One of the things that I used to think was this camera's biggest weakness was the battery life. And once you start to understand what you are getting from this camera and you start to think more as a cinematographer, you will understand that adding a V-mount battery to make this camera and other accessories that are connected to it last very long, that should be a responsibility as a DP. Because this camera shoots 6K RAW in different flavor, 5K RAW in different compression, and 4K RAW. So you having to do your part by powering this camera so it can give you that beautiful image, that is not a big deal at all. Also, if you consider this camera's battery life to be a big issue, it can be solved by thinking different. The image quality that you get from this camera depends on your lens choice, your lighting, your location, your composition, your costume choice, and one of the most important thing, which is your plan to create those visually stunning images by combining everything that I've just mentioned above. If you try to think of your images as a process of painting and do all you can to create them, I guarantee you have the best image quality possible. And if you're using the Blackmagic Pocket 6K Pro as a B cam with the camera such as the Arri Alexa Mini, and after grading, I promise you won't be able to tell which one is the Blackmagic and which one is the Alexa. And I remember we actually used them on a project, and we used to refer the Blackmagic Pocket 6K Pro as a poor man Alexa. So now let's talk about the codec and why I don't shoot ProRes. The first thing that I usually do when I get any camera, I always do an extensive test. This usually helped me to kind of understand the limitation of my camera and my codec. I've come to a conclusion that I do have to shoot RAW 97% of the time, just because I do have that flexibility to recover the highlight or the data that lost in the shadow or the highlight. Another thing is that I actually don't want to limit myself with everything that RAW offer, because when I'm sitting in that grading room, I actually want the colorist to push the image to the best of its ability. I also do love the control and the ability to change ISO, gamma, and everything that I want to achieve the look very easily. I also do not want my white balance to be baked in the footage, and I don't want the camera to do some noise reduction for me, and I want that image as raw as it can be. And one thing that I've noticed is that the biggest drawback to this is actually storage. And one trick that I usually do, I try the best as I can to pass that to the client. One of my biggest complaints is that every time when I'm on set shooting with this camera and I see a character coming in wearing black, I always have that face, because I know because of the IR contamination, everything that looks black is going to look very awkward, especially when you're using the ND. And I hope Blackmagic is gonna come up with a way of fixing this on their next camera. And if you want to see my prediction to what Blackmagic is bringing, listen, here is the video. Go and watch it and tell me what you think in the comments. So if you ask me, is this camera perfect? I'll tell you yes and no, and here is why. For this camera to be perfect, it needs you to level up your storytelling ability. So I recommend you to stop watching more gear review and focus more on lighting, composition, because everything that you get from this camera come from your experience and knowledge as a filmmaker, because everything is manual, and the best image that you can get from this come from how far you push this camera. Also, if you're new here, my name is Kashilembo, and on this channel we do talk about filmmaking, gear review, DaVinci Resolve tutorial, unboxing, and everything to help you improve your visual storytelling. And if that's something that you're into, make sure you subscribe and turn on that notification bell icon so you don't miss when I post a video like this. I'll see you when I upload. Another super helpful tool that this camera has is the RGB histogram, which allow you to see the tone of the image that you are capturing. Capturing.